Welcome to the NerdNest, everyone. There's been a huge break in the Xbox Activision acquisition that has plagued us for the last 18 months, so we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about how handheld PCs are in for a massive change in the future, and a certain Gamepass deal is going away for now. But before we get to those stories, let's hit a couple of the quick ones. One of my favorite games from last year, Shredder's Revenge from Dotemu, is getting DLC, which includes new characters, but also a new mode where you just have to survive as long as possible. You'll be able to earn crystals as you progress, which you can then use to upgrade your characters, and I'm telling you, if you don't have this game yet, you absolutely need to pick it up. It's one of the best brawlers out there. One of Xbox's biggest franchises is getting a new game soon. We recently saw a trailer for it with Richard Ayoade playing a giant. But Anna McGill, the narrative lead behind Fable 4, has announced that she will be stepping down from her role in August. Some people are worried about the narrative lead leaving the game that's currently in progress. And while I'm not a developer, I would assume that before a lot of the work can get started on a game like this, the story has to be nailed down first. So I'm sure that it's going to be fine. Plus, she's the narrative lead. She wouldn't be the lead if she didn't have other people that she was leading. So I'm sure that there's somebody on her team that can take up the reins and land this thing. Well, it's been 2 years, but CD Projekt Red has finally been able to claw back their rating for Cyberpunk 2077 on Steam. At the time of launch, the game was plagued by numerous bugs, and the most playable version of the game was on Google Stadia. Now, we all know that Miamoto quote about rushed games being forever bad or something, but games never launched finished anymore. And these days, we have quite a few examples of games that have had disastrous launches only to be rescued by devs putting their heads down and getting it fixed. I haven't really played Cyberpunk 2077 since launch, so I don't know what it's like these days, but it's finally received a very positive rating on Steam. Very positive, by the way, means that more than 80% of the over 500,000 user ratings are now positive. Just imagine what it would have been like if CD Projekt Red had been given the time to finish the game and launched it now instead of 2 years ago. Moving on, Capcom gets a lot right, but their crossplay is kind of a pain. One of my favorite Capcom's games is Monster Hunter Rise. I have about 50 hours on the Nintendo Switch, and then when it came to PC, I dumped about 90 hours into it on my Steam Deck. One thing that I was really disappointed about when I switched over to the PC version was that I couldn't play Rise with my friends anymore. We now had a wall between us. Now, I thought they were fixing this with Capcom ID that was introduced with Street Fighter 6, but it's also a part of Exoprimal, and you can't party up with friends that aren't on the same platform that you're in Exoprimal. Capcom does say that there's no party creation crossplay on day one, so maybe that'll come later, but come on. Crossplay needs to be the standard these days. So if you're going to be picking up Exoprimal, you're definitely going to want to get together with your friends and figure out which system you're going to play on. By the way, if you're looking for friends to game with, join our Discord. There's a link down below. And with the smaller stories out of the way, let's move on to the main topics for today's video, starting with the Xbox Game Pass Family and Friends test. For the past few months, Microsoft had been running this test in certain countries where you could have a special Game Pass subscription that you could share with your family. Well, it looks like Microsoft is ending that test. I don't know about you, but I kind of just assumed it would slowly open it up to more countries instead of shutting it down. But with Microsoft recently raising the price of Game Pass, perhaps they are going in the opposite direction. Microsoft has said that they are going to reevaluate and find an offer that they can bring to more players worldwide in the future. I personally really do hope that they bring the family plan everywhere, as it would save me money in the long run. Though I have to say, I can't see a whole lot of incentive for them to do that. The trial ends on August 15th, so if you're subscribed to it, that plan is ending. But as a thank you for participating, you're going to get a Game Pass offer. I'm not really sure what that means. Perhaps it's a discount. I guess we'll find out on the 15th. Now, speaking of Game Pass, Xbox Live Gold will apparently transition to Xbox Game Pass Core on September 1st. This includes multiplayer and various benefits. It's the same price as Xbox Live Gold. Existing Xbox Live Gold subscribers will automatically convert over to Core. But as a bonus, they're also going to be getting 25 Game Pass games, and games with gold offers will end. So what does this really mean? Well, now there are 4 tiers to Game Pass, and because the core players will now have access to 25 Game Pass games, that kind of incentivizes them to jump in at the next tier. I think overall this is a pretty smart move from Microsoft, and I'm surprised that they didn't do it sooner. Well, it looks like Microsoft is finally going to be able to close the deal and purchase Activision. They announced this over 18 months ago, and it's been kind of a roller coaster on whether or not the deal would actually go through. Well, the FTC's appeal for a preliminary injunction has been denied, and while they still have a lawsuit, it's unlikely to win or the injunction would have succeeded. During the entire drama, Microsoft had offered Sony a guarantee of Activision games on PlayStation consoles for 10 years. Apparently, Jim Ryan said no, he would rather the deal just get blocked. Well, it's pretty clear now that the deal is going to go through, so Sony and Microsoft have actually signed a deal. This was announced on Sunday. This deal is a little bit different though, as it's only for Call of Duty, and there doesn't seem to be any mention of other Activision games. Of course, it isn't a 100% lock yet. Microsoft still has to get past the UK regulatory agency CMA, and that should happen in a few weeks, but let's just imagine that it goes through. What is going to happen? Because Sony has said that they didn't really feel comfortable providing dev kits to a competitor. Right now, that doesn't matter, as the PS5 is out there and Microsoft can figure out whatever they want just by going to the store and buying one. But when the next-gen consoles come out, will Sony provide Activision with dev kits for future hardware? During the discovery process of this lawsuit, it was revealed that next-gen systems are likely coming in 2028, or at least that's what Microsoft thinks. So let's fast forward to 2026 or 2027 when dev kits are out there, but the consoles don't exist yet. Sony has a good reason to want to withhold dev kits from Activision because they don't trust a simple legal agreement to keep Activision from reporting up the chain about what the PS6 can do, what features it has, perhaps features that Microsoft hasn't thought of yet. And perhaps Microsoft could simply steal those ideas and implement them into their own systems. On the other hand, if Sony doesn't provide dev kits to Activision, then the PlayStation version of Call of Duty is sure to be an inferior one. At that point, Sony could just say, "See, Microsoft are making Sony players have the bad version. We told you that this was going to happen." But once the deal is done, there isn't really a whole lot anybody can do about it. So Sony is kind of put in a bad position. Give over the dev kits and trust that Microsoft will behave, or don't and likely reduce sales for Call of Duty on your platform. I, for one, think that Sony will capitulate and hand over their dev kits because they want to have the best possible version of Call of Duty on their platform, but in the past they have held back dev kits for games like Minecraft, which is why there's no PS5 version of Minecraft. So who knows what's going to happen. Moving on to our last story for today, the EU just passed a new law that will require devices to have user-replaceable batteries. This law doesn't go into effect until 2027 and should only affect new devices, but this is awesome. Long before most other parts wear out, battery health is kind of the first thing to go. Basically, every battery has a limited number of charge cycles, and as you keep charging and discharging the battery, you continually reduce the amount of power that device can charge. Take a look at your phone right now. My iPhone 13 Pro Max is currently sitting at a maximum capacity of 90%. So forcing manufacturers to allow end users to easily replace the batteries in a device is a really big deal. Well, kind of. You see, the law asks for, and I'm doing air quotes here, easily replaceable. Define easy. I've completely torn apart my Steam Deck down to its bones and put it back together in a new transparent case. There is a video linked down below. The process took me about 7 hours, 2 of which were spent cleaning glue off the screen. Now, luckily, I didn't have to touch the battery when doing this process because the battery in the Steam Deck is glued down. And the best way to weaken the glue and get the battery out of there is to heat it up. And heating batteries is never a good idea. But at the same time, I'm sure that if I had to pull the battery out of the Steam Deck, then its modular design means that I could. So does that count as easily replaceable? I'm not sure. I'm betting a lot of hardware manufacturers will either push back against this or simply say, oh, ours is easily replaceable. You can buy the parts needed from the website. Good luck. If nothing else comes from this, perhaps it will force manufacturers to at least have the parts available for you to purchase. So if you want to make these repairs yourself, you can. Now that's one thing that Valve did absolutely right with the Steam Deck. You can get many of the parts from iFixit, though I have noticed that some of the daughter boards for the Steam Deck are not available on the iFixit site. Anyone know anything about that? The ROG Ally, on the other hand, is just as modular inside as the Steam Deck, and it doesn't even glue the battery down. But you can't really repair it, as they haven't given anyone a way to buy replacement parts yet, and I'm not sure if they've even said anything about that yet. Finally, I want to respond to a comment from the last video. Robert Senior 6041 said, I'm surprised someone hasn't talked about being able to buy the Steam Deck from Walmart's website yet. I gotta be honest, I had no idea you could buy Steam Decks on Walmart's website. I checked, and sure enough, they're up there, but they cost more than buying them from Valve, who also offers free shipping, so I can't imagine anybody actually using that. Anyway, Robert, thanks for the info. I've replied to your comment with a Steam game code, and I hope you get it before anybody else does. That does it for today's news. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'll read through your comments, pick the best ones, and reply with a code for a game on Steam. From the NerdNest, I'm Bill. Stay rad, everyone.